It's been a little while, but I am so happy to have him back. The one and only Z-Train, Mark Zona, host of Zona's Awesome Fishing Show and the Bassmasters, joins me this week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course my humpers. You're all welcome here at the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. Welcome into the 160th edition of the Mercer Podcast. I hope you are having a wonderful week. As you watch this, God willing, I'm already on my way, if not already there, to Columbia, South Carolina, Lake Murray this week. That's where we're going, right? Yeah, Lake Murray in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where I'll be this week for the Bassmaster Elite Series. And if you're in the neighborhood, make sure to stop by, say hello to myself. And Davey Height will be there with me this week. So it's always a good time. I look forward to seeing all of you there. Another big thing we got to talk about coming up this week. This will be your official reminder. This weekend is Mother's Day. You wouldn't be here without your mother. Show your mother a little love and, go buy her a gift. Give her the gift of time. Spend some time with them. And then there's another thing I want to talk about real quick before we jump on with our guest, and he is a wonderful guest. Go fishing. I know that sounds stupid and simple and juvenile, but literally go fishing. And I'll tell you why. It'll make you a better person. It'll make you a happier person. And I experienced that recently. Believe it or not, I mean, I fish for a living, but when you fish for a living, you get stuck in this grind, and I'm not complaining at all, but this grind of like just actually physically getting to fish. And I had gone for a stretch where I hadn't been on the water. I had been talking about fishing a lot. I had been doing a lot of podcasts, doing a lot of different things, but just not physically getting out and fishing. And when I did fish, I mean, it was generally always with a camera there or some kind of business thing connected to it. This past week, I got away for several days and just went fishing with nobody, just myself. And whether you do it alone, you do it with a buddy, it doesn't matter. But I was just reminded, just like it is freaking therapy for me. And my wife has always been that way, where she's always said, you need to fish. Like when I get so distracted and, everybody deals with stresses in life. But when I go fishing, they all go away. When that boat floats off the bunks of the trailer, when I first launch it, when I first pull away from the dock and I start absorbing myself in the outdoors and to start thinking, okay, where would the fish be? And you start making those decisions, and then you just get yourself into a world where nothing matters but the fish. That is therapy to me. And I believe if you're listening to this podcast, it is most likely therapy to you. So make sure you tell your mother you love her on Mother's Day. Give her a gift. Be kind. But go fishing, because it is our therapy. And the world needs a little bit more kindness and happiness. I can tell you right now, I was a lot better person driving home from that fishing trip than I was driving to that fishing trip. And it's always like that for me. So go freaking fishing. That's my message for you this week. A guy who doesn't need to hear that message is Mark Zona, this week's guest. He spends an incredible amount of time on the water. He is he's one of the major reasons that I got the job that I have at Bass. And he is one of my best friends on the planet. And this show, we talk about, everything. We literally, from his Chicago Bears draft stories to bass fishing to smallmouth evolution to everything going on in the Elite Series, everything going on in the industry, good, bad, or indifferent. We kind of try to cover most of it here. And I think you guys will enjoy this one. We travel all the way to Sturgis, Michigan to hook up with the one and only Z-Train, Mark Zona. Z-Train,
Yes, sir.
You've been on this podcast before. It's been a little while, but this is your first time officially as a freaking Hall of Famer.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's it makes me feel uncomfortable actually, even like hearing that. Yeah, it's strange. Very strange. I was talking to somebody last night about that, and oh my, it's very hard to comprehend. You, Dave, you know me pretty well. I'm not a big awards, and Karen boxed up I think 100 tournament plaques and we gave them away. It's just not but that one is, I guess now that I've thought, and I have, like, when I'm driving, I've thought about it a little bit, and it's weird. Like I my hands shake when I think about it. It really, in all honesty, look, dude, I'm a dork. You're a dork, Dave. And when something like that comes across, it puts into perspective. It puts into perspective the people that you and I that we work with, of how good they are. Because to have a personal achievement like that, people got you there. Really intelligent people from everybody in 1200 Scott Street at JM Associates, Middleton and McInnes and Tommy, and it's really bizarre to go into the Hall of Fame with Mike McInnes. I look up to him. We're all best buds and kind of all that side of it, but those people in that building are so talented. All the way back to Van Damme, 21 years ago, saying, "Man, have you ever thought about being on television?" And it's just it's what's weird is it's more of how I look at it now. We love our job, but you miss a lot of family stuff.
Yeah.
You miss a lot of family stuff, and for some, it really, really weird. It's more for Karen and the boys than anything. God, I'll start crying, man. I will. What's weird is I was thinking about this last night, because the neighbors were talking to me about it a little bit, and I remember 30, 40 years ago, I would be on this lake and I'd catch a bass, and I'm like, where is all this going? Like, where? Because I was so addicted then to last night on the pontoon boat, just catching a 12-inch bass, to this day. And I guess, the other side of it, I also looked at Karen. I'm like, all right, got in the Hall of Fame. Let's wrap this up. Let's wrap it up. But it is such, and I mean this. It is such an honor to have worked side by side with the best people in this. You being one of those. I'm so friggin' lucky, dude. I'm so fortunate, in so many ways.
So what I take from that is you're totally gonna bawl during the induction ceremony.
I'm gonna keep it. I'm actually not going to the dinner. I'm not going to the ceremony.
That would be the ultimate Zona thing to do.
I know it would be too. It's crossed my for the Dave Mercer podcast. There's a few people that don't know. I am genuinely horrified of human beings. Horrified, and being in a room with important people terrifies me, in a very big way. And I thought about doing the Irish goodbye, where I'm like, all right, I got to go to the bathroom, and I just don't come back in. Right? And what was funny was Dustin from Bass Pro Shops. He's the head of marketing. He knows my massophobia, and he's like, wow, looks like you got to go to that dinner. I said, absolutely. It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. So, but yeah, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. I'll cry right now.
I mean, I'm not giving up on the live via satellite, and you could pull it off because I'm freaking MCing it, dude. So you could tell nobody but me, and I could be like, "And here's Mark Zona," and up on the screen, we could get away with it. So there is a chance.
I've thought about it. I'm not. It's weird because that is truly what's strange is I can speak to a not well, but I can speak to a camera. But I still to this day get anxiety if I have to go speak to 10 7th graders in a junior high. I'm terrified. Like I start sweating to this day, and I'm still that way where it is my number one biggest phobia is public speaking.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun in September. I can't wait to watch that all go down.
It'll be something. Yeah. Later that night will be fun.
Oh yeah, I bet. You had a lot of fun last week. I mean, I saw something sweet, something that I haven't seen. Like, I mean, we've been friends a long time now, Z. But I saw 4 Bears fans, a family unit together, and the smile on your faces as you and the whole Zona family went to the draft.
It's hope. It's hope, Dave. And I got to tell you, I'm not a jealous human being, but I am horribly jealous of you and the Chiefs Nation or whatever you guys call yourself.
Kingdom.
And here in the kingdom. And here's my problem with the kingdom. Okay. There's 2 things with the kingdom, and it stems back next to the Bears. I love the Buffalo Bills. I love the Buffalo Bills because they're kind of this hopeless loser that I have so many buddies in Buffalo. Like I asked you the first time I met you, how are you not a Bills fan? You're so close to the Bills. And what's really bizarre about it is like, I was genuinely somewhat happy for you and McKinnis and Stan Lippelman he lived in Spring. Like you guys were so happy when you guys won your first Super Bowl with Mahomes. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And then after the second one, I was like, no, I don't like them. I don't like, honestly, it got personal, Dave. It still is personal. And here's why it's personal. Here's why is the Bears told Patrick Mahomes that they were going to take him, and they got Mitch Trubisky, and I have a problem with that. Like I have a bad, but here's the other side of that. I told McKinnis this: the Bears would have broke Patrick Mahomes. They would have broken him. Like, all right, so it's weird. Like I almost think I don't want to say this. It's almost like I feel Caleb Williams is Bears proof. Like they can't stop it. All right, so let me tell you what happened at the draft. You ready? I have not told you this story, but I'll never forget this. So, unnecessary name drop. Mike Golick and Frank Ragnow got us NFL hospitality badges, right? So we're all jacked up. We get to the draft, and they turn next to the actual sea of human beings. They turned a Texas de Brazil into the hospitality viewing area. And I'm like,
that's where we went for my birthday.
Did we just walk into heaven? Because I think we walked into heaven. So it was cocktails, steak. But here's what's interesting. Okay. You couldn't see the stage. I'm not kidding. You could not see but there's big screens everywhere. Look, dude, it's steak and big screens of the draft. But you could see the sea of people in front of you. And the boys, it's weird. They went there. They had like a deck outside of but you could not leave the deck. Okay. So I walked out, and Hunter and Jacob were like, "We can't go see the draft." I'm like, "Well, just watch it right there on the TV. We're all good. Just enjoy yourself." And I'm sitting there, and I could see that they were crushed. They were crushed. And Karen's like, "We can't see the stage." And I was like, "I know, it's all good. Let's just enjoy it."
You keep bringing meat, though.
Yeah, sirloin, more. So anyway, so you had a few cocktails, and I looked at Karen and I went, I can get to the stage. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, I can get up there. She's like, okay, take a selfie when you get there, Mark. So I walk up to, there was like 9 rows of gates of security to get to the stage. And the very first lady that I walked up to, she's so kind. Like I could picture her face. I said, so I'm all alone. I walked up to her. I got my hospitality badge. And I said, ma'am, the NFL guy in the hospitality told me he pointed at you. The draft is in 45 minutes and they want me up at the front row. She goes, what'd you say, baby? I said, the NFL. She goes, what NFL guy? I said, I have no idea. She said, what are you talking about? I said, he's up in the hospitality. He pointed at you. And I said, I got to be up there like now. And she's like, well, come with me. Walks me to the front row. But here's the problem. Now I don't have my family. I text Karen, literally, I can show you the picture. I text Karen this picture, okay? I text her this photo. Let me show you this. Literally, I am in the front row. I'm in the front row. And she's like, what about us? I'm like, what about you? So then I start feeling, so it's 7:15, 8 o'clock draft start, and I start feeling like really guilty, but I don't want to leave. Like I'm in the trench, right? I got in. So I start pacing a little bit, and I'm like, all right, this is horrible. I walk out, and she's like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I just BS my way down to there. And I said, let's go try. I said, let's go try. So the kids, I go back to the lady and I said, ma'am, I forgot my family. And she goes, all right, I'm starting to call BS on you. She said, go back in the hospitality thing. I said, no, I got the family. The NFL guy went. She goes, there's no NFL guy. I said, there is an NFL guy. And he wants our family down there. She goes, go up in the hospitality. So we turn around and there's no joke. I hear Mark Zona. And I turn back around and there is a cop. And he goes, I watch all your shows. I'm like, you got to get me down to the front row, bud. And he's like, come with me. And the lady looks at me and she's like, go ahead. And he walked us right down to the front row. Like, here's what's funny is he walks us down. He goes, this is your table. Do not leave your table. Do not misbehave. Enjoy the draft. And he checked on us a few times to make sure we were not misbehaving.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So there you go.
Hey, I mean, you make your living talking. If you can't talk your way into the draft, you can.
Literally, when Roma Dunze was picked, that was to me, that for us pathetic Bears fans, everybody, you knew Caleb Williams was going to be number one, but all the I'm a podcast stalker where I call into podcasts, and the biggest thing was pick number 9. I thought the Bears can mess this up. They will mess this up, and they'll pick somebody that nobody knows. And like when they said his name, like we all just went crazy. It was great. It was great. Great memory. Great memory.
You got right up front row, and you were screaming at Rome when yeah. I mean you like it was cool to see you as a fangirl.
I lost it. I literally lost it. And what's funny is his agent has texted me, and we're gonna go fishing in June together. I know, this is so nuts. And I'll tell you what was really. I know this is a fishing podcast, but let's talk more about the draft. So there's this dude with glasses, and I'm looking at him, and like all these people are just walking up to this dude, pictures and pictures and pictures, and the kids are like, "Hey, that's Sketch."
Yeah. I'm
like, what does that mean? I said, he looks very important, like very important, yet not. Like, does And so he came over to our table, and we were talking about, and he looked at me and he goes, yeah, my dad and I, we hunt whitetail bucks. I want to go whitetail buck hunting and largemouth bass fishing with you. I'm like, Sketch, let's go. Let's go. So that capped off the entire. And what was funny was I did not know before that evening. I did not know who or what Sketch was, and it was amazing because like the dude plays video games and just
what's up, brother?
goes to what is up, brother? Like it was unbelievable. Like he hung out with us for like a while, and I kept. I had the boys like explain what he does for a living. It's almost like telling somebody that you commentate bass tournaments, where you're like, I don't understand what you're saying. Right? Like I don't understand that.
He's I had a similar experience. No, I didn't get to hang out with him or anything, but I swear to you, like I don't know, 3 weeks ago, whatever, at our last event, I'm doing a thing with Swindle, and Swindle says something, "What's up, brother?" and does his hand movement that sketches, and I'm like, what is that? And people are like, you don't know Sketch? And I'm like, no, he's like huge on TikTok. And I'm like, I didn't know who he was. My kids couldn't believe I didn't know who Sketch was. And literally since that moment forward, if I put on any social media, anything, all I see is, what's up, brother? Sketch is everywhere.
Everywhere. Just, and what was funny was he had this, and I was, again, Dave, not a jealous person, but he had this badge where he could walk anywhere. Like anywhere. And I'm a little bit bigger than Sketch, right? And I literally was sitting there contemplating stealing his badge, like rough talking him and taking his badge. And like I saw myself walking backstage to the area before the guys were like, there was a part of me that thought about taking his badge and announcing the Bears' #1 draft pick.
I don't think you could take Sketch's badge. I mean, look, he's so beloved by people. Like he wore a Texans shirt out, and they still cheered him. Like everybody else, they booed, but they cheered him.
Everybody.
I think Sketch is a treasure. I mean, and he's also what's wrong with the future, because he literally
100%.
had a job as a real estate agent, I guess, but never did it. Like said, he made one call a day and would sit at home, and he said he prayed that he wanted to just be famous. He had no idea. One day he said, I'll start streaming, and guess what? Sketch is famous.
My father, I explained. What was funny was Karen, I'm bouncing all over, but Karen posted the picture of us hanging out. And what is funny is how many 25-year, like our friends' children went crazy when we posted that. And to the right now, Dave, I still don't get it. I do not understand it. But yeah, we're gonna go bass fishing to get the Sketch. What is up, Sketch?
What's up, brother?
Exactly.
I'm a big fan of Sketch. I mean, I've been into him, but I worry that like he might be one of those dudes that like when you shoot with him in a month or so, he'll be at the height, but by the time the show ends, people will be like, who's Sketch? But he's a good dude. Like he really does seem like he's a very normal, good dude.
Yes.
Agree?
Yes. 100%. And not only that, I'll be honest, like Sketch off camera is a lot of fun too. Like he fit right in with our table. You know what I mean? Right? And I noticed he was not leaving our table too. Like yeah, Sketch fit right in so many ways.
Maybe you can bring him to the Classic or something.
I don't think that's going to happen because I literally, like Dave, I was like, Sketch, you don't bass fish. He's like, and Sketch is colorful, like profanity. And like, he was like, oh, I do bass fish. Like, I can't give you the exact words, but he says he's got a lot of game. That and whitetail bucks.
Yeah.
Zona, we're going whitetail buck hunting. I'm like, oh, no, we're not, Sketch. We're not ever going whitetail buck hunting.
He's surprisingly athletic, so I think he can fish. Like, I mean, he can play golf. He can.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good for him. Good for freaking Sketch.
Absolutely. Like, you could see Sketch flowing through the Classic Expo, hanging out with Chase Anderson. Like, I could see it all coming together. Night of the Champions. I don't know.
He is a champion. He is a champion. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that was the draft. That was the whole thing. It was one of the I like what's weird is I never thought a draft would be, but obviously with the Bears situation, it made it like amplified. But I'm not kidding you, Dave, because I texted you. I was like, "Hey, are you going to go?" Dave, it was one of the most fun evenings. Just the atmosphere. It was total. The entire thing is total chaos. Is the best way to describe it. It's chaos.
It looked like a very successful draft. I mean, Detroit freaking nailed it. Like, I
Nailed
mean,
it.
why do you think this one was so? Do you think it's just like? I mean, I think the Chicago Bears having the first pick and being that close to Detroit plays, but I also think the fact that
No,
the Lions are, it's
they're
a
good.
volcano. They're good.
Yes.
Everybody wants a
Yes.
piece of that.
And I'll tell you, yes, like you could feel, wow, we don't suck anymore. You know what I mean? Like they were when the Lions had, it's interesting, and I've verbally beat Van Dam down. Like I was when they had Stafford and Ndamukong Suh, uh, Brandon Pettigrew, and Calvin Johnson. And I looked at Van Dam. I'm like, dude, if they don't win with that team, it's not in the cards. It's just not in the right. And you also knew when Stafford got out of his rookie contract and they had to pay him, it's almost like it prolonged the pain because they weren't able to. Not only that, what's really strange while we're talking football, if you look at what the Chicago Bears have done for Caleb Williams, wouldn't you think like Justin Fields is like, what? Why didn't you help me?
God. He
Like,
has some
really,
abandonment
dude?
issues. Like,
Yes. I mean, dude, they got him DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, an offensive line, and you feel so bad for Justin Fields, where you're like, why y'all hate me so much, right? So bad, it's so bad. But anyway, moving on.
If it all works out, you'll forget about Justin Fields. It'll be.
Oh no, he's already in the rear view. Like we the jerseys are gone. We got new jerseys.
I bet you do.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry.
All right. So if you're going to make a successful fishing podcast, the worst thing to do is spend the first 20 minutes talking about NFL football, because some people are probably pissed and not here anymore. But
it's all right.
It's who we are. And
yes.
So talk to me about fishing. There's nothing going on in that world, is there?
What's weird is I just got back from taping. We had a big week taping, and I got to see something on camera this week fishing that we had 31 pound. And I thought of you and a lot of your viewers. And I said this during the show, we had 31 pounds for 5 smallmouth on camera. And I remember, like, what's weird is I remember when a 4-pound smallmouth meant something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then there was the next level of a 5-pounder. And every now and then you'd hear about the unicorn of a 6-pounder. And what I got to see, and this is what's really bizarre, is I was taping with my buddy Vandy, who is my old tournament partner, and it all came together totally by mistake. And I know that sounds weird, but I was going to go to Sturgeon Bay, and Strike King called me and said, hey, we got a new lure. We're going to send you a picture, and we're going to one day them to you. And it's a really, 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 really cool soft plastic. And I said, well, heck, I'm going to switch from Sturgeon Bay and I'm going to go to Lake Michigan up north, just because that lure fit in with where I thought we could knock a show out with it. And that's no joke. I just sight unseen. All right, let's go up north. And what was funny was, I know this sounds crazy, Dave, but you'll totally relate to this, is we had 5 that weighed 31 pounds, and it was so tough. that sounds insane. But we started in the morning and it was dead slick calm. And I caught, and I had my scales with me. And I don't even know why, like, dude, you've been in my boat. I never carry a scale or a net. And I had both of those in the boat. So anyway, I catch a 6-pounder in the morning and I weighed it. It was like 598. And Neil catches a 4-pounder and it goes totally dry till 10 o'clock. And I said, we need to get, I'm getting too locked into this area, but it's a big fish area when they're in it. It's deep, it's like 20 to 30 something feet of water and there's scattered wood. And I moved like 500 yards to work my way back into it. Because you know this, if there's a 6-pounder somewhere, there's a load. Like he's not there by mistake.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, Neil catches back-to-back 6.5-pounders. And it's on a spot, like I'm on spot lock. And he looked at me and he goes, "We're gonna do 30." I was like, let's go. And as God is my witness, I caught back-to-back 6.5-pounders and we're like, wow. And what's weird is, I knew we were at 31 pounds. What's weird is I got done that day. And if you put that in, I know, especially on the east end of Ontario and you guys trophy season, that's, I hate to use this word, but a 30-pound stringer is actually becoming common nowadays, which is, here's what's weird about it, Dave, is what is the ceiling? Right? What is the ceiling? Like I seen Nick Cuevas caught 34.85
an
or
8.55.
Sure, why not? Right? And you look at that and you're like, what seriously, what is the ceiling? You see what also goes on out in Idaho and stringers like that, where you're like, how is this happening? And what's funny, Dave, is you would hook those fish, you'd hook them, and they would look down in that clear water. They would look like they're about that big, and all of a sudden they would come to the surface. And you're literally, I hate to say this, you're like, holy shit, look at the size of that thing, man. Right? And you get them in the net, every single one of them. You would get them in the net and just stare at them. Like they would come to the surface and look, and you've done this. They would look like Boca Pass grouper.
Yeah.
Where your eyes would, and what was funny was by the end of the day, a 5-pounder meant nothing. And this, like when you're taping and you so need a 5-pounder, right? And they meant nothing by the end of the day. And I truly believe what I'm going to say to you. I know this sounds crazy. There was another angler out there, really, really, really good fisherman, and caught one of the biggest 5-fish stringers I had ever heard about. It was over 35 pounds out there. And he gave me room. That, like, he was out there that day and he came up and he said, "Hey, I just want to say hi." And I said, "Hey, what's up, Andrew?" And he was with his father-in-law who flew in to fish with him. He said, "Dude, I'll give you the area." And it was weird when we hit that mark. I could see him miles away. And I called him and I said, "Are you catching him?" And he's like, "No, I'm not catching him." And I said, "Man, I feel really, really bad." I said, "Listen, we've got 31 pounds. I said, bring your dad over here right now." And he goes, "Are you being honest?" I said, "Absolutely." And they came over and they started crushing them, big ones. And then my selfish side, I was like, "All right, now, go on now. Going back where you, but
you got a little bit.
Yeah, it was Dave. I mean this. It was a very special experience, and to do that on camera with the crew, you knew something was happening because we were all kind of just looking at each other after the fourth one where you're like, wow, this is going to happen. It's going to happen. So, yeah.
You know, those are, you said you were jealous of me at times with the Chiefs. That's when I'm jealous of you at times because you really have, I mean, put your show. I mean, you have the best fishing show on television right now. And I'm in the television show business and I can clearly look at you and say, but you've put your show ahead of anything else in life, you know, ahead of Bassmaster, ahead of like when the taping's good, you're out fishing. And I always find it frustrating to watch. And I'm like, oh, I want to be out there. But here's when I think about those fish, dude. When I'm on the St. John's River and I'm watching people weighing 30 pounds, 31 pounds,
Yeah.
it's so weird to me. Like I'm surrounded by largemouth, but all I can think about is those 30 plus stringers of smallmouth because it makes it even more amazing when you're watching a guy weighing 31 pounds of largemouth and you're like, well, they're catching 9-pounders.
Right.
It's amazing that smallmouth are even. What do you think the ceiling is?
I don't know, man. It's weird. I've heard Van Dam say, you know, the good old days are right now. Because I don't know. I don't know what the ceiling is. Like how, yeah. And I'll tell you what's weird, talking about Van Dam, is there was something that happened. I remember fishing against Azumi in an Everstart. Oh, Dave, I don't know what year. I'm going to say it was like 2001-ish. And what's funny was, this is no joke, there was a Bass Open in the late 90s where on Lake Ontario, I think it was taking like 17 or 18 pounds a day to win. Okay. And then there was a span where a Bass Open or Never Start, they do now. They have a tournament there every week, you know, in the summer. But what was funny was there was a span of about 5 years, okay, where there was not a national tournament there. And then this Ever Start showed up. And Kevin called me and he's like, how you doing? I said, dude, these things are bigger. He's like, what do you mean? What, explain that. I said, I think it's going to take 20 something pounds a day to win this tournament. He's like, what are you on? I said, I'm on like 18. He's like, dude, if you catch 18 a day, you're winning that tournament. And I remember like the first day or something, I don't know, I got caught a heavy 17. And in the bag line, I'm just staring at these 20. And you think to yourself, well, maybe we just hit some magic window. And that magic window has been for 20 something years, where it kind of, I guess, in my opinion, the zebra mussels and goby started there kind of, and then faded west throughout the Great Lakes. And I don't know what the ceiling is. Like I did a solo show. I remember calling you. I did a solo show in Buffalo, just west of Buffalo. And that was 2 years ago. It was this week, 2 years ago. And I caught just under 30 pounds alone. And you say to yourself, where does it end? You know what I mean? And what's funny is, Dave, that there has been like a lot of gobies now have gotten into inland lakes.
Yeah.
You know, I heard they're in Cayuga, a lake that I took a ailer to where we had 30 pounds on camera. I don't know. You know, it's weird. Is the next goal 35 pounds? Is the next goal 40 pounds? It has to be, I guess. You know, it's weird.
If you look how it's, I mean, it has to be. I don't see where it falls. I mean, obviously it has to slip up, but I mean, when you're saying that, I'm thinking about like, I remember many years ago weighing 23 pounds and having people go, holy, like
Absolutely,
I'm not talking
dude.
spring or fall, but then I also remember that, you know, just a few years later, 23 pounds was nothing. Now it's like, we're seeing 25s and 28s and now 30s. And it's
you know
stupid.
What's weird is when Corey and Shakurit broke 100 pounds. Is like, dude, I never thought that would happen in my lifetime. Of course, it was a tournament that I wasn't working to, and I remember watching it, and you're kind of like, what in the heck is going on, man? And to where no, it's not a perfect scenario of conditions. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only thing
And,
that stops them from cracking 100 there every time we go there is time. This year,
yeah.
it might be very difficult because we're running from Waddington. So, but the difference is they're all going to run now. Like
Yeah.
unless they shut that lake down, which I don't think that they are. They're all going. They've all seen it now. They all.
The other side of it is, if you don't go, you
Yeah.
should have your brain checked. Like, literally, I get playing it safe, but you are not in contention if you are not out there in that lake. And I'll tell one last thing on that, Dave, is I heard, like when gobies kind of arrived, and you heard, well, the smallmouth are going to get big, but they're not going to breed, and there's not going to be, there's not the year class is going to be absent. That is so untrue. It's so untrue. For the simple fact, I got to see this last week. You could get away where you could get away from where those alphas were, where those true giant smallmouth were, and you could catch 112 inches every single. Like, it's good. The future is good. Because I was worried about that. Are there? And I'll tell you one. God, I could talk about this. I could really talk about this for hours. Is I have also seen with my eyeballs. A lot of folks said, well, those goby, they live around rocks, and pester smallmouth when they're spawning. I have seen, especially St. Clair, to where smallmouth have relocated where they spawn and will actually spawn on sand now. They will absolutely, to get away from that nasty little pest, they will spawn on hard sand. So I guess what the point I'm elongated, they have figured out how to evolve to get away from that pest when they reproduce.
Yeah. I mean, same thing's happening on Erie. There's a lot of fish spawning on sand. I mean, there was stuff that we fished for years that we thought they were pre-spawn. Oh wow, these are they go up, they come in here to we thought, you know what I mean? You read enough Bassmaster magazines, you believe your bullshit. So we thought that we found this spot where they come pre-spawn, and then it wasn't until we put a camera down there or 360 got so much better, and you can literally see the beds. I mean, they're bedding out in that. It's fish evolve.
What's very fish evolve, that is so spot on. What's very bizarre was 2 years ago when I did that deal in Buffalo. The day before, I fished with Chris Johnston, and I was on him pretty good. And what was funny was Chris left. We got a show shot, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna come up. This is a layup, right?" And in the morning, you know where I fish. You know exactly, like, the area, and there's nobody. There's just nobody there. It's one of those special areas, and I'll never forget this. In the morning, I caught two great big ones. So when you score 2 touchdowns to start a show, the rest of the day is a layup, right? Totally went dry. To the point, I looked at Evie and I said, "I don't know, dude. They left. They rolled." And it was big boulder with hard scrabble, broken rock around it, in like 15 to 25 feet of water. And I'll never forget this. I looked at Brian because I wanted to get, it was a Friday, and I wanted to get the crew home to their families. And I said, "Guys, if I don't catch another bass, we'll turn this into like a little internet show, and we won't use it for a Zona show." And I said, "We'll put it on the trailer in the next hour." And I could see it was kind of demoralizing to the crew. And I was idling from one rock area to another rock area, and I was going over pure sand about 300 yards away from where Johnston and I caught him the day before. And I saw a school on my side imaging. Dude, if you see a school of bass, smallmouth bass, they're big to show up, right? And I looked at Evie and I said, that's them. I said, that's them. They moved, they're on the sand. And I'll never forget this. I grab my rod and I launch a tube behind the boat, and I wave the camera boat off. I said, back up, put it in neutral. And my line just jumps. And I catch one that's a light 6. And what was funny was it was right when Mega Live came out. And imagine this. That sand made sand ripples, right? And you'd see one like peekaboo. He'd poke his head up, and when you hook them, they would come out of those sand trenches by the hundreds, right? And I looked at Evie and I said, I'm going to beat their ever-loving brains in for the next 2 hours. But I guess what's funny is, to the exact word you use, is smallmouth do things now that I never saw or experienced 20, 30 years ago. They do things, and they live in areas that they did not decades ago.
Yeah. I mean, nature evolves, smallmouth evolve, and I mean, everything that the world said was going to destroy smallmouth bass fishing is the same things that people are saying made it better. And I think, forward-facing sonar gets a lot of negative from some people, but dude, one thing it's done is taught me how many fish there is.
Yes.
Like we as anglers get our heads stuck in thinking, oh yeah, there was a few up there and I caught them all. And then you realize before you're not even close. Like you're not even scratching the tip of what's down there.
I said something to Louis Stout. And I said, I hate to say this, and I've heard Clun talk about this a lot. Boy, we really did not know anything about. We did not know as much as we thought we knew about a bass. And what I've been most. They're very hard tournaments to commentate. I've told you that off camera. Doing an all forward-facing sonar event when everybody in the top 10 is doing it is almost like eerily similar to doing a bed fishing tournament where everybody's bed fishing. It's just very hard. There's no diversity in it. But what has been interesting to learn, okay, is we all thought 3 years ago, you, Davey, because we've talked about it to each other, is, well, yeah, when we go to lakes like a Lanier, or especially when we go up north, they're going to be forward facing. But when we go to the Gunnersvilles and we go to the Toledo Bends, that's going to be the equalizer. Those are going to be normal tournaments because those bass don't act like that. Yeah, they do. And the other thing that it's taught us is the more pressured a body of water is, a Toledo Bend, a Gunnersville, a Sam Rayburn, the more pressured those historically awesome lakes are, the more those fish live the majority of their life suspended. Pressures put them out there. Yeah.
It is wild. It's a wild time in the sport. And I think
it is in many ways.
in many ways. Let's talk about the Elite Series. What's your take on the rookie class?
Boy, they're nasty. They're very, and we kind of all knew, and I know a lot of your viewers know this too, is I don't want to say when you were able to qualify through 3 events, some guys were, and then some guys were not ready, getting out of whatever region that they were from. They were going to take their licks. They were going to take their lumps for a year or two. And you got to see, a Jordan Lee or somebody like that who they were ready. But I think college fishing got a lot of the younger anglers ready.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the opens are set up now, if you qualify, you're ready. You're ready. But what's been interesting also, that Trey McKinney boy did something that I really, really respected. And look, he's going to get hate. He's going to get hate because he's
I hate
really
him.
good.
I hate his guts. He's
I can't
19 years
stand him.
old. He's a beautiful young man. He can
Right.
evidently catch a bass without even trying. I mean, how do you not hate him?
He's really good at, and he's gonna look. He's not gonna be. He's gonna be a superstar. But one thing that was Dave. Gosh, I have not told you this. In 21 years of covering this, he is the only angler. The very first time I spoke to him on the phone was the night before the first day of the St. Johns River, and we kind of went through how he's catching them, what's going on, and blah blah blah. And I was very soft serving. I didn't want to terrify. I kind of enjoy sometimes terrifying people. And we were getting done with a call, and he said, "Mr. Zona," he goes, "I have a question for you." I said, "What do you need?" And he said, "How do I get better?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "How do I get better?" And I said, "Better? What do you mean?" And he goes, "Look," he said this. He goes, I got this fishing thing figured out, but when he said that, I was like, and he said, I want to be great all around, just not the fishing aspect." And he's been the only angler in 21 years to ask me that. Only one ever. And it was smart. It was smart. And I gave him my opinion of how I thought he could be, the total package.
It's funny because he asked me the same thing and it stood out to me. But the weird thing is there's several of those rookies that have now asked me the same,
It's interesting.
I feel like, forward facing sonar aside, I mean, whether it stays, goes, I honestly believe that, will it affect some of the rookies? It might, but it's short term. I mean, they're obsessed with fishing. They are literally, it's and I feel like what we're watching in front of our very eyes, and some people hate to hear this, but it's an evolution of the sport in the way that, and it happens in every other sport. I've told the old analogy of, I remember Steve Larmer, who a Stanley Cup winner, played for the Blackhawks, played for the New York Rangers. And I remember doing a charity event with him when I was in my early 20s. And I remember him saying, the NHL isn't what it used to be. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, he goes, now we used to show up to training camp to get in shape. He says, now these kids, they train all year. That's all they care about. They don't have girlfriends. They literally, all they're focused on is, and that's not the NHL I signed up to be part of. I think that very same thing is happening right in front of our very eyes right now, because you got people like Tyler Williams, who literally left his house after Thanksgiving. He will not be home to Maine. I mean, and Maine is out of the way, but it's not Idaho. You can get back to Maine. He will not return to Maine until after the tournament in Waddington, New York. He is living and breathing. I mean, he's those rookies, those NHL rookies that showed up in shape.
Yeah.
Not a good analogy for Tyler, but.
I'll tell you what's also, it's when I talk to a lot of the rookies, I'll ask them, hey, besides fishing, what are you into? Like, what's your jam? Are you into the NFL draft, or is nothing? Fishing. And you've seen that a lot the last couple years, and really the way the sport used to go was, there was always, when you got to our age, Dave, there was always, for a lot of the veterans, there was a slow exit.
Yeah.
Not in, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel like that right now. It's like if you don't perform, you're going to go like, and that's sad. It's sad in a way, but it seems like if you don't put the ball in the end zone, you're just not gonna make it at this point. And it's weird, but you're seeing that at an accelerated rate right now with a lot of the younger guys immediately showing up and replacing a lot of the stars. Because you could see that frustration with a lot of the veterans. You know exactly what I'm saying. You see a lot of that, and I think that's and I feel for a lot of those guys that. But if you don't put it in the end zone, there are people here to take your job, and that's what professional sports are.
Yeah, and every other sport is
Yeah,
like that. Fishing has not been like that for a long time.
Ronnie's trying to do that to me right now in studio,
and all of us.
But and here is a credit to young dudes. They're relentless. Ronnie is relentless. He is
Hard
a
worker.
bass fishing. He's a hard worker, and at the end of the day, that is what wins. Period. In anything in life, hard work beats the person that doesn't work as hard.
Yeah. Talent is, I mean, it's funny. I say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, talent is what everyone talks about, but talent is this much of it. Like if you're a decent person and you're willing to work your ass off, that's always it doesn't matter what the job is. It literally doesn't matter whether it's commentating in a bass tournament, whether it's competing in a tournament, whether it's cutting somebody's lawn. That's the person you call the decent person who you know will work hard, not the most talent. Like it's.
Anyway. I learned that, and it goes back to kind of how we started this today. Is I learned that building like in my life, hard JM Associates is hard work. And I remember when you started, and it was I think your first tournament was the Classic, correct?
Yep.
And you're all to this day, and I laugh at it because I know I bitched at you every now and then about it. You when you are on stage, to me, that's one of the hardest jobs on earth. And I'm talking circles right now, but you are so high. You're so high when you are emceeing a weigh-in that you have a crash. You have a epic crash every single day that you come off stage. And I remember the first tournament. You called me and you're like, "How'd I do?" I said, "You did fine." And you're like, "Well, no, Mike McKinnis didn't even say good job." And I said, "Yeah, and he won't." Right? And you're like, what do you mean? I said, the only time you're going to hear from him or anybody else in our circle is when you screw up.
Yeah.
But if you hear nothing, you did great. that is how our group works. The only time you're going to hear something, Dave, is when you epically mess up. So
yeah. Well, it's an amazing group to work with. It really is. And I asked Jerry about that once. I'm like, why does nobody ever give, like, nobody's ever critiqued me? Like, it's so funny from the outside. I mean, all I hear is, well, Bass tells them to say this, and Bass says that
is so untrue.
Do this. It is the most untrue stuff ever, other than a sponsor mention, other than it is now Phoenix Boats Big Bass. It is now, you know what I mean? Other than that stuff.
Yes. It's it.
I've never been told anything to say on stage or on live ever in my whole career. It's literally, but Jerry said, we hire people that we think can do the job. So when you show up and do the job, we don't need to tell you did the job. And it's
what you're there for.
Yeah, that's we thought you could. That's why we hired you. So
you know what where I will give, where I really to me, and I don't want to go deep, the best leaders that I've met let their coworkers be themselves.
Yeah.
That makes sense. They let them be themselves, and instead of grooming, it's really hard to explain, but they the one thing I can always say, that working next to Sanders, that group of people always let me be who I am, for better or for worse. But I respect that. I respect that for never trying to hone me into something maybe that they vision. They let us be who we are, and that's I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, very much. Very much. It's an incredible group to work with. So one of the big topics that is floating around, and I'm almost at the point where I think there'll always be a big topic, but right now, one of the big things, and I don't know how they deal with it, is where a fish is hooked. And
You're going
it's
there,
really,
aren't you, Dave?
well, I mean, yeah, I guess.
I guess.
It to me, I mean, it's cut and dry on paper when you say, okay, well, every fish has to be hooked outside the mouth, but that becomes a bit of a mess in itself.
It does.
Because we all know as anglers, there's times when, I mean, you're throwing a jerk bait that those fish are clearly trying to bite it, but they don't get hooked inside the mouth.
Yeah.
Does it have to get
half
black?
of them? Half of
yeah.
them. It look, the situation that you're talking about obviously happened on the St. John's, with Corey, and I think Corey's one of the best fishermen on the Elite Series. Look, did somebody? If you're gonna snag a fish purposely, you're not going to use a wacky worm. Number
Exactly.
one, okay, but you're right. That's there's a razor's edge right there of and I said this to Corey. You probably should have called the tournament director immediately. That did not happen, and that's where the optics of the situation. Look, was he trying to do that? No. But he was sight fishing the majority of the tournament. Now you get into, if you got perspective view, are you sight fishing? That's where we're at in this. And I don't know. I've heard a lot of people give their opinion. You're right. Yeah. Well, all fish have to be hooked in the mouth. That also opens up a big Pandora's box of headaches. And I don't know what the answer is, man. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe hindsight, Corey have done something differently. I can't speak for him. He feels he did exactly what he was supposed, what the right call was. And it's up to other people to say, no, that was not the right call. I think they gave him a lie detector and he passed that. I don't know. And I don't know what the correct answer is. I don't know.
I feel that I say that a lot nowadays. That exact statement. And I'm thankful that I don't work in the tournament department, because
Agree.
It's a tough time to make, and you've got so many armchair quarterbacks that are calling violations from what they see on screen. And I mean, I agree with you. Like, number one, you don't use a wacky rig if you're going to intentionally try to snag a fish. And why would you ever try? You're not fishing by yourself in the middle of a lake. Like, I could see where somebody snags a fish in the middle of the lake. There's nobody around, and then they lie about it and say, you're surrounded by cameras. Why would you ever try to snag a fish? I mean, because really, let's just say 99% of its body is in play, where you literally have 1% of the body that you got to hook it, and you're going to take that risk to try and,
hey, look, man, the optics look bad. The optics of it look bad. I said that point blank to Corey. going into the last day. But I said, hey, look, this is also a topic I have to cover the rest of this event, but it made me feel weird. It still does, because I don't know. I always put, I don't know. I always put myself, what would I have done? What would I have done? I think I would have called the tournament director and said, hey, here's the situation. Corey did not think he did anything wrong and said, I didn't need to call anybody. I didn't do anything wrong. I was not looking at it. Okay. That's how he handled it. But the optics don't look good. They look like shit.
Apart from that fish, what about, I mean, everybody talking about fish getting snagged on a graph. I mean, and see, you've got more experience with forward facing sonar than I do. I mean, I have done a bunch of it, but you've done more of it.
A lot.
Is that something easily to do? Do you think that people are actually, can you physically snag fish on it?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of fish out there just floating around, and you can spine them with a jerk bait. You know, do I think people are doing it purposely? No, but I also believe you can run a jerk bait over one's back or a crankbait, and it is part of it. You know what I mean? And I don't know what the answer is on that, Dave, because we're going to get to that point. There was a fish caught in the Classic that way. There was a fish caught on Harris that way, where you could tell that fish actively was not biting. It was not actively biting the lure. And then you get into, I've heard exactly what you just said, that, well, you solve it by every fish caught in the mouth. Okay. Now you also opened up, okay, a jerkbait scenario. You know this. A lot of times with a jerkbait, front hook, middle hook is in his cheek, and then the back hook is in his fin. Well, if that one hook pops out, that fish was actively biting. That fish was actively biting that lure, and now you can't weigh it in. So damn, man, I don't know, but I get frustrated. I get frustrated, like, with a lot of the fans of the sport, and I don't know what the correct answer is to it all right now. I don't know.
Yeah, it's.
What would you do if you were Dave Mercer, tournament director? What would you do?
I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know, because there's
part
of me that's like, make it black and white. Like, everybody wants to get rid of gray. Okay, make it black and white, and every fish has to be hooked inside the mouth. I think on paper that seems like the right approach, but I feel like you're getting into a very slippery slope of.
I agree.
I
agree.
You're now changing the sport. I mean, I think what that ends up happening is it evolves into even more little baits, single hook baits. Like, all of a sudden, all those treble hook baits that we love catching fish on, all of a sudden they come out of play, just because if every fish has to be hooked inside the mouth, even if I don't have graphs on my boat, I'm going to hook some of them outside of the mouth. So I'm going to start throwing something that I'm guaranteed to always hook them in the mouth. I think it's just a weird. I don't know how you fix that.
I don't either. And what's really, I always have an opinion. Like, I always, I'm dead serious. I don't know what the correct opinion or answer is. I have no idea. Where we're headed. I don't know.
Okay, so
and that's very, 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 very rare for me to say.
While we're living in the uncomfortable world, playing tournament director, what's the future of forward-facing sonar, in your opinion?
Here's what's really, really. here's what's really strange about that is I do give Chase a lot of respect that he is on the topic right now. And what's funny is I told you this. He called me 2 months ago and said, I want your opinion about it. And I gave him 50% of one opinion totally for it. And then I gave him 50% totally against it. And he goes, you do know that you just gave me two polar. And I said, there's where I sit.
How you
There's
feel?
where I sit. Forward facing sonar, I've made this comment on Bassmaster Live. It's a lot like fantasy football. The only person that's really having fun is the person that's doing it. Nobody else really enjoys it. And here's what's really bizarre. I had a buddy over here the other day on our pontoon boat. He said, I just can't stand watching that. And I said, but you do it all the time. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. But I can't stand watching. And I get that. I get that. But I also think it's a very hard topic. Say, you hear people of get rid of it. I think it's very, very hard. And this is bass. Since I was a boy, our job now, but Bass's message since I was a kid is teach us how to catch more fish.
Yeah.
That's what, look, a lot of people don't watch Bassmaster because of the fishing stars. They watch Bassmaster to learn how to catch one more bass. Whether
Yep.
I want to learn how to catch one more bass in my tournament, or I just want to learn how to catch one more bass, when on my day off. That technology does that, dude. It does that. I don't know. But what's really weird, and I made this comment, I talked to you about this, is the St. John's event. I made the comment earlier this year, might have been the end of last year. There are going to be so many anglers out scoping that somebody's going to blow it away up shallow because nobody else is up looking around shallow. We saw that. At the St. John's.
Yeah.
When I talked to Corey after the day one weigh-in, he said, dude, I went back in Salt Springs on this morning and there was 2 boats. That is a direct effect of people living and dying with that technology and didn't check the obvious. You're going to see that happen again. Whether it's this year, next year, you're going to start to see tournaments getting blown away in well-known areas that people just aren't even checking anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
boy, we're covering it all today, Dave.
Well, we
covering
are.
it all.
I mean,
it's what we're here to do.
I ripped the Band-Aid off, and I figured we might as well.
Yeah.
Pile
and, again, I do not know what the correct answer is. I don't know. But what's funny is it's so strange to get so excited when you see somebody actually like bass fishing, the art of bass fishing. And what's really, while we're talking about this, is I told you last summer I went and shot a show where I caught largemouth out in 70 feet of water, right? From top to bottom. And it's funny, it was probably, I'm like you, the majority of my shows are just us misbehaving and acting like hyenas. It was probably the most eye-opening learning Zona show I've ever shot in my entire life. And I purposely, you do run of shows, when you pick, all right, this show is going to go week 1, first week of January, second week of January. And I purposely did not come out of the gate with that. I did the first week was a frog show, and then it was a thunder cricket show, then it was a topwater show, and I purposely put it like show 5, right? And I told Karen, I said, when this show airs, I'm going to take arrows. I'm going to get beat up a little bit. And what was funny was watching the replies were either, it was so one side or the other side of that was the best show I've ever seen. I never imagined you could do that with largemouth. And then the other side was, you are the devil. How dare you air that? And what was funny was watching viewers fighting with each other, where you're like, what the hell is wrong? What is happening here? But I knew that show was going to ignite the for it, that technology, and the against it, and it absolutely did that.
Do you remember anything in the sport ever being like that?
No,
Because it
no,
is. There's no
no.
gray. There's
no gray.
people. I mean, it's like having, and I've told him this, so I'll gladly say it's like having Randy Blockett on your podcast. You're going to get a bunch of people view it, but you're going to get a bunch of people that, like, I've never had as many people that left comments that said, I watch every single week. I've never missed an episode. I am not watching this one. But then I've never had as many people make comments that are like,
well, it's interesting because I didn't watch that one.
No, but there's no middle ground.
No in between.
Like it is a war. It's which that's what blows me away, because in fishing, it's always been, you do it the way you choose. Like, I got buddies who tie flies, and they think that their way of fishing is so superior to anything that we do. And that's what they get off on. And that's cool. There's no part of me, we make jokes back and forth, but there's no part of me that looks at them and hates them for doing it. There's no part of them that looks at me and says, he uses electronics and braided line, and they don't hate. They just,
you filthy scum.
You lower than I.
You know what's I said this in that show. The lake that I did that on with the large, I remember texting you right after. I said, dude, I just caught them out in 50 to 75 feet on the bottom, largemouth. And I remember talking to you about it. What's funny was, I said this at the end of the show, when I was a little dude and I fished with my father a lot, when you're a kid, like I'm looking at the lake I grew up on right now, is when you're a kid, I would always say to my dad, the biggest ones are out in the middle of the lake. You don't know nothing, Mark. They're under boat docks. And what's funny is, this is no joke, all we used to do growing up is we would troll. We'd start at one end of the lake and just troll with a lipless crankbait or stuff like that. And I look back on that now, like we would catch bass in the middle of the lake trolling 10 feet down, and then you'd land the bass and just keep going. And now that I look back on that, they were always out there. They were always out there. And it here's what I'm having trouble getting this actually out of my mouth right now. But what's funny is, the lake that I shot that show on is, I used to fish a lot of tournaments, and I remember like we would catch them out, Dave. We would catch them in 30 to 40 feet of water, and I would always think to myself in those tournaments, what's out there? What's out there? What's living out there? They were out there the entire time. Giants, the entire time. Never saw a fishing lure. Years and years and years of just being left alone. It amazes me. It absolutely, positively amazes me. And you going back to, I was talking about Louis Stout, like I called him after I shot that show and I said, we have been so epically off. Everything that I've spewed and you've written was so wrong. It was so epically wrong.
Yeah. For a long time. And that's where I battle with the whole, because my initial instinct And this, my initial instinct was like, it's wrong. It doesn't make it.
It was. That
in
is
in other
exactly.
sports, when something makes the sport more boring, they stop that. And that
Yep.
was. But when I hear people like Rick Clunn say, I've learned more in 4 events this year than I have
Yes.
in the previous 50 years of knowledge, I'm like, well, how do we turn that? Like, how do you turn that switch off and be like,
Yeah.
okay, when are we just going to write articles about shoals and the moon phases and back to.
But you can all, Dave, you can also go to, okay, to play against it. You cannot, in golf, you cannot use a rangefinder and a club selector.
Yeah. Or a
You know
cart.
what I mean? Or a cart.
But
So
everybody that goes golfing, same
uses a
exact
cart.
same thing. When they do it for fun, I mean, they wouldn't even think of walking the course. I mean, they
Right.
use a cart.
Right. And I wish there was clarity to where you're like, this is what we've got to do. This is what we've got to do. And I will tell you, I respect the anglers that have contacted me about it, on one side or the other. I respect both of their opinions on it because I don't disagree with either of them.
No.
I don't. But the other side is, it is not my job. It's not your job, to be the, beat the drum of one side or the other. My job is to articulate how, where, and why. That is what my job is. It's what it's always been. And that's what I'm going to make sure it continues to be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The one part, and I'll get roasted for just saying this, but I mean, I just feel it has to be said because nobody says it. The one part of it that I hate is Bass is forcing them. Bass never
so
brought
untrue.
forward-facing sonar to bass fishing. I mean, the anglers just showed up with it, and they loved it. And now it's like, well, Bass is making nobody. I mean, all that Bass has done
Absolutely
is said,
not.
slow down. We know that there has to be a call made on this. We want to study it. We're going to make a call. What that call is, nobody knows. But the last thing, because, dude, if Bass wanted to push it, if Bass said, hey, this is what we need, like if Bass truly was what people say they are in the comments, the first 2 people they would have talked to are me and you and everybody we work with, who would say, hey, talk about that positively. But again, I've never once been told what to say or what not to say.
At all. And here's what's really busy. Like, I talk to people that work for electronics companies that are totally against it. They're totally against it. And then there's people that work for electronics companies that are totally for it. And that's, there's no electronic company saying we have got to. It's just not there. There's not this big behind the scenes initiative going on. There's not. Not that I know about. And I think I'm plugged in at work. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Some days I'm not. But I do respect how they're currently handling it and looking, and instead of making a knee jerk, just a knee jerk reaction, and hopefully coming to an educated call on it. And look, whatever decision or they make or don't make, you're going to piss somebody off.
Yeah,
that's what our world is, man.
People get ornery. People get ornery.
They get mad at us.
Dude, I have so much respect for Chase, just simply because, I mean, you look at what he's been through, like in his ownership. I mean, Bass has had some incredible owners throughout the years, and I've always said they had the right owners at the right time. Ray Scott had to be the guy that started it. He sold the world on bass fishing. You know what I mean? And then Helen Sevier made it a lot more corporate, built it up. And then ESPN came through. And obviously we've seen how incredible that was to grow it. And then when we needed an ownership that just really cared about bass fishing, Jerry McInnes, Don Logan, and Jim Copeland come along. And then Chase Anderson comes. And they were part of the ownership previous to that, but they took, the Anderson group took control of this.
Yeah.
70 of the anglers end up leaving right away.
Say that to yourself.
And just when that gets smooth, we're like, okay, whew, we made it through that. I don't know how. Along comes forward facing sonar.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick, I did this. Last year, I called Chase before the season ended, and I said, you've got a tornado meeting a volcano headed your way. I remember making the call, and he goes, do you really think it's going to be that big of a topic? I said, yeah. At the time, we didn't know, Dave.
No.
Because at the time, we thought it was, just, I'm circling back. We thought it was just going to be northern fisheries and Clearwater fishery, blah, blah, but it was something that I had a vibe was coming, and then it arrived. It totally arrived. So
definitely did.
Yeah.
What's your future like?
Boy, you're tackling everything today. I'm gonna do some pontooning. I'm gonna do some pontooning, and it's like my last day off. And Dave, I don't know. What's funny is Zona show is such a blessing, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of commitment, and I love it, and I'm so lucky of the goofballs like me that like the show. But I don't know. One day the ride on Bassmaster is gonna end.
No.
Yeah, it is. It is gonna. No. It is gonna. But the nice thing is gosh dang, I owe that company so much, from all the owners, whether it's next year or the year after, whatever year it is. I owe that company, and I owe the viewers so much. And what's really weird is, before we did this podcast, I was thinking about it this morning, is both jobs are so totally different. Like commentating a tournament and then Zona World, they're so polar opposite occupations. But it's really weird. I heard you make this comment, like, somebody's going to figure out and they're going to fire us one of these. This has been so much fun. Somebody's going to be like, you've had too much fun. Go on now. You're fired. It's what's weird is I still feel that way. And when you first said that to me, we were having a beer somewhere, and you're like, somebody's going to figure out that we just chase bass around for a living. And I remember laughing, but I think about it now. This has nothing to do with your question, but I love, and I know you do, and I know your viewers do, I love this sport so much, and I care about this so much, that it consumes my mental capacity for it to be right and to be true and to have integrity. And I get, this, I get very frustrated when things aren't right in our mind and in our viewers' mind. You get frustrated. But it'll find its way. I believe that. A lot of topics, though. Woo.
A lot of topics. I've taken enough of your time. I got one more question for you.
Well,
give me a question for our next guest without even knowing who our next guest is. Just go any direction you want to go. Make them as uncomfortable as you want to make them.
What's going on up in there? Really? What's going on up in there? That's what I want to know. Yeah.
That's a good one.
What color is it up in there? What's happening?
Not too
I genuinely wonder that about everybody. Like, I look at my little puppy, I'm like, what's going on in there?
What do you think is going on in that puppy's head?
Treats, man. Treats. Treats, and let's play fetch. Come on. How simple of a life is that? Dave, I love you. I do. I think we've tackled it all. I think
We have.
we've attacked it all. Yeah. I'm sure somewhere in there we have pissed somebody off too. So
yeah, I'm sure. But
what circling back on the forward facing sonar, if you live on the fence like I do, you don't make anybody mad.
But
right?
I feel like the fence is the only place you can, because we don't have enough facts. I mean, if there was,
it's a safe place.
that's what. Yeah, I mean, let's all get along.
If it was an easy call, come on, man. It's not. And again, I don't know what the call is, but I love being on the Mercer podcast. Let's go.
I love having you on here, but I know you love pontooning more. So go pontoon.
I do. You're the best, bud.
Thank you very much. I love you, brother. I appreciate every moment that you give me.
Thanks, bro. See you.
Always good stuff with Z-Train, and I thank him for being so open and so honest and having such a revealing conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's show. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Just leave a thumbs up, give me a knuckles, whatever in the comments. All of that helps stroke the algorithm. So help me stroke the algorithm so we can keep making these shows. Until next time, enjoy being. I hope to see a bunch of you at Lake Murray. And as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?